And I think it is also, sorry, I was speaking on mute for my live stream people. For my live stream, this space is, I'll just say it again, this space is to understand India and Pakistan. And a little bit about myself. I was born in Punjab, or Indian occupied Punjab, as we like to call it. I'm a Sikh, and lived a third generation veteran of Indian Armed Forces. Lived in the Indian state for around 33 years of my life. Have lived in different parts of India and migrated to United States in 2013. And now I am an American Sikh. And so I think, once I moved here, I also became a student of American history and American Revolution, and then I think I'm in a unique position, having lived in a free society like America, and also having lived in India, which is relatively very unfree. I think I have a unique perspective which I should bring to bear, so that people who are interested in understanding, especially um, the the people who have some kind of a stake in the subcontinent, if they are interested in understanding what is India, what is Pakistan, please keep tuned. Hopefully you will learn a lot. You will learn facts and realities versus propaganda and agenda that is pumped in by many think tanks. That having been said, I have a couple of people on, so we are live streaming. At the same time, we have a Twitter space which is open. You can ask me a question on live stream through the chat. You can also join the Twitter space and ask for Mike in case you want to participate. But I will request people who are in the audience in the Twitter space, if some of you can please ask for a speaker or take a co-host. What that will allow me to do is that in case I have a signal issue, the space will not crash. So I'll really appreciate if some people can volunteer, and you can ask for a speaker and I'll give you the co-host. And this is going to be an interactive session. I would welcome questions as they come through, as we go through the presentation. I will be making a PowerPoint presentation, and we can take questions in between, or we will take questions for sure in the end. Um, I will time bound this today to 2 hours because sometimes my speeches go on for too long, 6 hours, 7 hours, which I kind of think sometimes is not very useful. And while having said, Rich is here, Rich, I'm going to invite you to co-host. If you can take it for some time, I'll appreciate that. I'll appreciate that. Can you guys hear me in the Twitter space? Was I on mute when I was speaking? Oh, okay. So the Twitter space guys could not hear me when I was speaking. The live stream guys could, but that's fine. We'll start the space. As the topic says, let's try to understand India and Pakistan. Rebel, thanks for writing it there that you were not able to listen. I can give you a quick understanding. The objective is to understand what is India, Pakistan, a bit of their history, very important in today's world to kind of understand what's going on in that part of the world. So, if you are also watching me on the live stream, you can probably see my presentation. If you are just on Twitter Space, you can probably mute yourself here and also open the live stream. I don't know how that works, but I'm basically walking through the presentation as I talk. So, the map that you see here currently uh, is the political map of India. As you can see, it has different quote unquote they call states, but they are basically nations in themselves. So you have 29 different states within India, and each state have a different language, and also sometimes very different ethnic make, a different culture, different value system, and a very rich history of its own. So while these are called states and provinces in India, they are in reality all individual, distinct nations with their own culture, with their own value system, with their own language, with their own attire, with their own cuisine. So you have like so this is like, and the sub and Indian country in itself, the whole area is much more diverse ethnically, religiously, linguistically than you can the entire Europe. It's way more diverse, multiple times more diverse than Europe. So this is the political map. So just looking at this map and knowing this reality, you will realize that India is not one nation. One nation like Germany is a nation. India is not a nation. India is very much like Europe. It's like a continent. It is a continent. And from a state perspective, you can call it an empire, which has multiple nations subjugated within it through force by British colonialism. So, and it's more of a relic of British colonialism because these nations did not come together on their own. They were brought together under one centralized rule through warfare by the Britishers. So this is the today's modern day political map of India that you see. On the eastern side, you will see another state called Bangladesh, this white one, which also used to be part of this India Pakistan mix, but it's today an independent state of its own. Um, and then the next map that we will see is the political map of Pakistan. Again, like India, Pakistan is also not a nation. It has four different nations which are part of it. On the northwest, you see Khyber Pakhtunkhwa. Middle is Punjab. Punjab is the most populous state of Pakistan. On the west, you see Balochistan. And then on the south, you see Sindh. Again, each of these provinces or states have a different language, a different culture, a different value system, different cuisine, different way of dressing, you name it. And many of them have been at war with each other for quite a period of time, like the Pakhtuns and Punjabis. They typically have been hostile to each other, and many have had very friendly relations as well. So this is Pakistan. While India is kind of a bigger empire, Pakistan is kind of a mini empire. So this is the very first learning you guys should have. We should stop calling India and Pakistan nations because that's an oxymoron. That's a totally incorrect, non-factual observation. And anybody who starts calling India and Pakistan nations basically is committing a very first blunder, which I call is born out of either ignorance, or if you are an Indian or Pakistani nationalist, then born out of malice because you want to make India a nation. Okay, so having understood that, let's understand how this political map came about. Okay, let's go to the next slide. But before that, let's understand the subcontinental geography. If you see, this is roughly how the geography is. And on the northwest is basically northeast is basically the great Himalayan ranges, and just north of that is the Great Plateau of Tibet, and then beyond Tibet is China. So Tibet historically was always an independent area, very sparsely populated, very high, uh, uh, a very super high plateau. Sometimes some of the heights of this plateau is just mind-boggling how high it is. And then this Himalayan ranges go up in the north, and you see they curve left and come down south again towards the Arabian Sea. And this middle portion, you see this kind of a kind of a funnel here of rivers. These are five rivers: one, two, three, four, five. This land is called Punjab, my homeland. Traditionally, historically, most of the civilization and most of the prosperous part of the subcontinent has been this area, the plains of Punjab, because it always had abundant water and had its own distinct culture. And why it is important to know this geography is because it will come to play as we start understanding the conflict between India and Pakistan. So today, most of this Punjab area is part of Pakistan, okay, and then half of these rivers have fallen on the Indian side, half have fallen on the Pakistani side of things. But this is roughly the geography. You see, there are plains in the north, then there are plains which kind of extend on the eastern side right into Bengal. Middle part has some hills, some hilly area. Then there's the southern part where the coastal part is without hills on the eastern side. Also some plain areas on the west side of the coast. And the southern part of India also has multiple different nations with very distinct culture that kind of developed over last 5,000 to 10,000 years. So important to keep this kind of a geography in mind, and because you will see how it had shaped these different nations in the subcontinent and also created the current situation of conflict between India and Pakistan. So after having looked at this, let's move on. Okay, so as I said, this is the political map that you're currently seeing of British India. Okay, it is before British left in 1947 and created two states out of their larger Indian empire. The joint Indian empire looked something like this in 1947, and so if you can see the the what I have seen here in different colors is this is how Britishers governed the whole Indian empire. When East India Company came in, East India Company actually came in first in the south. You see the Madras states. They started gaining influence here. They became mercenaries, and slowly they created an army of mostly indigenous lower caste Indians, which they called the Madras Army, and created what is called the Madras Presidency. They conquered the south of India. And then they conquered the east part of India, the Bengal, and they attacked Bengal and they took Bengal, and then they created Bengal Army. Bengal Army consisted of mostly the upper caste Hindus, Thakurs, and Brahmins from that area, which then they used to conquer the last conquering part they conquered was the northwestern part of India, mainly Punjab, Sindh, and Balochistan. So Punjab was conquered last. Punjab was the Sikh empire, and you will come to know who were the Sikhs. And once they conquered all this conquest was finished by around 1859. The entire of this political map came together, and it took them almost 200 years, or almost 175 years from their 200 years from the time they came in to the time they were able to totally conquer this and bring all these nations under one centralized rule. And they called it their Indian empire. And it was an empire because, as I said, they conquered one nation after another nation, and then basically started putting them under one state. And this is the political map. You see the areas in yellow, they call them British administrated provinces. Like these were the areas where they would have a governor general, a British governor general, who will have an executive council. They will also have elected representatives of people through legislative assemblies where people will come in as elected, and they will divide powers between them. So these were administered by British. They were trying to inject, the idea of democracy and elected representation to the people of India. And these were British administered. And then the pink ones were called the princely states. These were the states which were still having a king, a kingly or kingship rule, and they will have advisors, British advisors. They will also have Britishers in the lower bureaucracy sometimes, but to a great degree they will be autonomous, and the king will run them the way they want, and the kings would have their own armies, etc., etc. So there were multiple different princely states. Not all of them are shown here; they're kind of shown together. But the big ones were Hyderabad, the big princely state. Mysore was a big princely state. Balochistan, Kalat was a big princely state. Punjab had huge, powerful princely states of Nabha. And so these states will come into play when we talk about when British decided to leave the subcontinent, how these princely states, Kashmir was another princely state, how Kashmir became a conflict. Okay, so this is the state just before 1947. So British typically um, every 10 years they used to do some reforms. So as I said, the yellow provinces, the British provinces, were governed through a governor general and an elected legislative council. And the power, every 10 years they will give more powers. They'll give more powers from take away more powers from the governor general and give it to the legislative council, the elected representatives. And these were, they called it political reforms, and they wanted to bring in self rule. The idea was because the British in 1909 itself declared that they are going to leave India, they are not going to be here permanently, so they declared their intention openly. Once they declared that intention, it created a kind of a jostling between various interest groups in the continent. As you can imagine, there are 29 different nations, but like each nation is kind of on its own. But in terms of religious diversity, there is another identity dimension of your identity, which is your religion. So the major religions were Islam, Sikhs, Christianity. At that point in time, Hinduism, quote unquote, was not looked at like a religion. It was more like if you believe in everything. Brahmanism was looked at like a religion. But certain people in the from certain tribes in Hindus thought that everybody in this subcontinent should subscribe to a religion called Hinduism. So the initial their first of political party was formed, or political group was formed called Congress. It had representation from Muslims, Sikhs, Christians, uh, quote unquote Hindu upper caste, very few representatives from Hindu lower caste. But and this political group, obviously, it was formed of the elites, started making demands for self rule, and and Britishers actually encouraged it because they felt that we need these political groupings to form if British have to at some point in time leave the subcontinent, and kind of train the people in the art of parliamentary politics. uh, However, a conflict started developing between the elites, a casteist elite of the Hindus, and the Muslims. In a sense that while initially there was agreement between the two, the Congress, which was predominated or dominated by the caste Hindus, the upper caste Hindus, started making claims that once the Britishers will go, we will have a very centralized polity where every person will have one vote. But what that meant was that all the power will be with us. We will not have autonomous states or nations, because many of these nations were Muslim majority. Some were Hindu majority, some were mixed. But the Congress started making a claim, or have its vision, that we'll have a very centralized rule. All the power will be in this centralized central government, wherein and all of us will have one vote. And what that meant was, in a way, because quote unquote in their view, 60% of the people in the subcontinent were Hindus. What that meant was basically Hindu rule in practical terms. The Muslims started protesting that idea, especially led by Muhammad Ali Jinnah. And they said, no, that's a wrong vision of the subcontinent. These are multiple nations. We should have each state be an autonomous nation, each nation be given full autonomy. They should have their own constitutions, they should have their own flags, they should be independent nations, and then they should come together to form a weak central government for joint defense, who should only take care of defense and foreign affairs. And so Jinnah had an idea of what he called, some, and the Britishers also called, United States of India. While the Congress, the Hindu Congress, had an idea of a very centralized state where everybody is a Hindu, and then all the power is concentrated in the hands of the few. And the Hindu idea came from whatever their religious beliefs were, and the Muslims were basically acting as a reactionary force to that. And they said, we don't accept that. We want these nations to be independent and autonomous if we have to have a joint future together, because that will provide some safety to the religious minorities. Because Muslims there were certain nations here which were totally Muslim majority. So they thought that, okay, at least those nations could be independent and autonomous. So that way they can, they can safeguard the interest of the Muslims. But the Hindu Congress didn't want that. They said, no, all these nations will be subjugated to a central whole, and the central government will dictate everything. Now, that was a point of clash that started between the worldview of the Hindu Congress and the Muslim League, which basically came up as the representative of the Muslim interest. Okay, and this continued till this kind of debate was brewing up. So British, after Second World War, declared in 1940 that they once in 1945 the elections happened in England. The Labour Party won, and the Labour Party was very pro leaving India, like, and putting an end to colonialism. So they sent a group of 4 ministers to India, which is called the Cabinet Mission Plan, to come up with what is going to be the political makeup of India once the British left. That plan. So the Cabinet Mission Plan came to India in March of 1946, stayed here for 3 months, and then they gave what is called the Cabinet Mission Plan. Their idea was this, that you see here on your screens. They said Okay, most of the Hindu majority provinces or nations are in the central part, which they called Group A states. Okay, this yellow thing. And they say, let's group these provinces as Group A provinces. And then most of the Muslim majority provinces are in the west part and also in the eastern part. Let's group them together. The western Muslim majority provinces as Group B and the eastern Muslim majority provinces as Group C. And then they said that these groups are independent in itself. And within these groups, each of the province is an independent nation. So all the provinces within these independent nations groups should go back and write their own constitution, whatever they how they want to manage themselves, etc., etc. After they have done that, after Group B provinces have written their constitutions, each province, those provinces can come together and decide to have some kind of a constitution or power sharing at a group level. If they decide not to do any grouping at a group level, that's fine. Same thing will happen with Group A. Same thing will happen in Group C provinces. Each province will write its own constitution. And then representatives from all the three groups will come together to a central constitutional assembly and write a constitution for the whole of United India. And but it will be limited to defense and foreign affairs. The powers of the central government will be limited to defense and foreign affairs, and all other powers, residual powers, will be with the provinces themselves. And then they said that no law can be passed in the central government without the full, say or from all the groups and all the provinces, or especially the Muslim minority. So this was the cabinet mission plan of a united India. Again, the Muslims accepted it, the Sikhs accepted it. However, the Hindu Congress rejected it. They just hated the idea of sharing, of letting these provinces to be autonomous independent nations in themselves. So the Hindu Congress rejected that idea, and once they rejected that idea, the crisis came in. What is to be done? So the British then sent Lord Mountbatten in 1947, who then basically said that given that this Hindu part does not want to share power with Group B and C, and they have a very different view of the world, let us create let us take Group B and Group C states and call them Pakistan, and let us call Group A states as India, Hindu India. So we can just divide the country based upon religion. There will be no central government, and these will be two different independent states in themselves. And that is what called the Mountbatten Plan. But it created a problem. Okay, the problem was this that you will see here. So the Mountbatten Plan said, let's create Hindu India, which is pretty much like the map that you see today. Islamic Pakistan, which is western part of India and eastern part of India. But the problem was Punjab. You see, Punjab, this Punjab was kind of half Sikh and half Muslim. It did not have a clear Muslim majority. Same problem was with Bengal. It was 50% Hindu, 50% Muslim. It did not have a clear majority. So Punjab had to be divided, and the eastern part given to India and the western part given to Pakistan. And it caused a lot of migration. Now the Sikhs and Hindus living in West Punjab, which is Pakistan, now had to migrate into East Punjab, which was now under Indian occupation. And same with the Muslims living in this area had to then migrate into West Punjab, which was under Pakistan. Now, how did Kashmir end up being a conflict in all this? Okay, you think, okay, it is all clean and all good till now. Okay. As I said, there were many princely states which were not part of British India. Kalat being big one. We are only showing the big one, not the small ones. Kalat, Muslim majority, Balochistan. Junagadh, another Muslim majority. Now, this Junagadh was geographically within Indian states, well, like part of India, but it's actually Muslim majority. Hyderabad was Hindu majority, but ruled by a Muslims. Okay. Kashmir was Muslim majority, but ruled by a Hindu king. Okay. So it created a problem. And these principalities, they were given an option. that they can choose to go either with India or Pakistan, or say they are going to be independent. Okay, that was the plan. But once the British left, both the Indian Hindu India and Islamic Pakistan threw that all those promises to the wind. Said they had nothing doing. These provinces have no option. They have to either come with India or with Pakistan, because the whole division is based upon religion. Okay, so first India did. What India did was India attacked Goa and Junagadh. And India said, we don't care if Junagadh is Muslim majority and ruled by a Muslim king and where it wants to go. And we are going to forcibly take it on. Same thing, they attacked Goa. Goa was actually Portuguese majority. And they attacked Goa using an army. They said, we are going to take it on. And then they attacked Hyderabad. Hyderabad, they attacked saying, oh, the ruler could be a Muslim, but all the majority is Hindu population. So they have no right to be a outside India, and all the Hindus want to be with India. So they attacked Hyderabad. Once they did that, Pakistan did the same thing. Pakistan, Kalat wanted to be an independent nation, which was Muslim majority, but Pakistan had nothing doing. Okay, like everything is being divided based upon religion. You have to be part of Pakistan. And then Pakistan said, look, India, you took on Junagadh and Hyderabad by force, claiming that these are, especially Junagadh, which was already Muslim majority. Hyderabad you took on because saying it is Hindu majority, though the Nawab of Hyderabad didn't want to go with India. So they said, we will do the same thing with Kashmir. It technically belongs to Pakistan because Kashmir is Muslim majority. But India said no. India basically initiated a discussion with the Hindu king of Kashmir, and made the Hindu king of Kashmir sign the instrument of accession, which is debated. And these are all happening on the day of partition. Okay. And then when Pakistanis realized that the India is going to create a problem in Kashmir, they basically tried to take over Kashmir forcibly. India then also sent its army, and then half of Kashmir ended up with, not say slightly less than half of Kashmir ended up with in Pakistani possession, and half of Kashmir ended up in the Indian possession. And that line became the line of control. Okay, and then both the countries went to United Nations, and United Nations said that we should have some kind of a plebiscite, which India never agreed to kind of conduct. Pakistan always was in favor of getting a plebiscite conducted because majority of the population was Muslim, and it expected them to vote to go with Pakistan, or at the most go for independence. But India, while kind of on face kind of saying we'll go by UN resolution, they'll come up with one excuse or the other, so that no plebiscite is conducted in Kashmir. So this is how Kashmir became an area of dispute. But as I said, it was not just Kashmir, it was Junagadh, Kalat, Hyderabad, all these people, Goa, they were also outdone. And more so, injustice was done to them. But more so, the biggest problem was with the Sikhs. The Sikhs were an independent nation in itself. They had a different culture, they had a different religion even. So the Sikhs were not given any choice, and they had to forcibly become part of Hindu India and live under Hindu domination. And as a result, for last 75 years, Sikhs have had a lot of problems with the Indian state, where Indian state have conducted multiple genocides of the Sikhs, also sent in army to attack the holiest place of the Sikhs. And the Sikhs, Sikhs have also conducted multiple mutinies in the army, and it's been all kind of, it's a very bloody history between Sikhs and the Hindu Indian state post 1947. So now what happened is, as you can see, what is the situation now? India and Pakistan are formed, and while the reality of the situation is that India is not a nation, let's go back to this map. India is actually constituted of multiple nations within itself. India is created based on the name of a religion, which is Hindu. So the casteist elite which got power in India basically never admitted the fact that India has 29 nations in it. Their idea was that India is Hindu nation. So for them, but there is no Hindu nation. The reality is that these are different people, different culture, different value system, etc. So they had to get onto the task of what we call nation building. They had to create a nation of India. So they had to forcibly create common value system and common culture among this diverse group of people. And the only way you can do that is by suppressing or by destroying their native languages, their native differences of culture, language, cuisine, and whatnot. So the Indian state then went on for last 75 years. It has been on a path of nation building. So they will do through using this hugely centralized government. They will do one nation, one law. So none of these states or these nations have an ability to have their own laws. All the laws will be written by a couple of people sitting in Delhi. These states are not allowed to independently manage their police system or judicial systems. All the police officers, the top police officers, the top judicial officers, the district commissioners who will control every single fund, they will all be appointed by the central government. So all the executive, right up to the village level, will be controlled by the central government. Um, so it's a very centralized system. India wrote up a constitution, and they said it is a federal constitution. They created a state list, central list, but the reality is that all the state list is a joke, and the center has absolute power, maybe even more power than the Soviet in the time of Soviet Union, the centralized Moscow, whatever the Communist Party had. So that's the amount of centralization of power. The Indian constitution was written in a way that people don't have, while they have a chapter in the constitution called fundamental rights. There are 4 lines of fundamental rights, but there are 400 lines on how the state can take that fundamental right away from the citizen. So I had written down what this kind of a breakup, what it led to in terms of the traits of the Indian state. So the Indian state had to be formed like a centralized Soviet Union style state, because you want to now forcibly create a nation. You can't give fundamental rights to people because you want to now forcibly force one language on them. You want to force one law on them. You want to force one way of thinking on them. So you can't do that if you have fundamental rights with people. And what nation they were building? Because India per se in history was never one nation. So they go to Hindu mythology and bring back the concept of Bharat. It comes from one of the Hindu mythological scriptures called Mahabharat. And in that, there is some story that whole this area was under one king at some point in time. And that is what they bring in India, that is Bharat. And they actually renamed their country also as Bharat. So when you are in this very tough task of homogenizing this diverse continent, the core value of the Indian state became unity and territorial integrity of India. So for them, the fear always is that these nations within them will will remember their independence or their differences, and or they will start expressing their core native nationhood. For them, it is the most important thing is to suppress that. So the whole core value, if you are born in India, you will see the state from day one in your textbooks, in your TV channels, in your movies, in whenever you will take a government job, they will make you swear one oath. And the oath will have only one value: unity and territorial integrity of India. So to contrast it, if you are an American, for example, right? What are the values that America will put in a citizen? They'll say, hey, Bill of Rights, like freedom of speech, freedom of religion, limited government. Those are the American values. But for India, the only value is unitary and territorial integrity of India. And if you do anything, and this has created a huge problem, because when you are brainwashing people only into one value, which is the preservation of the state, then you are allowed to do any act to preserve that territorial integrity of India. So that's why in India you will see genocides happen of minorities by large mobs, and the state will fully support those mobs. They will conduct a genocide of any community, religious, ethnic, which will exert its own nationality, or put a fear in the mind of the central rule that they might seek secession. So, and when they do that, they will actually celebrate the people who conducted those genocides or those acts of mass murder, because the core value of the Indian state is unitary and territorial integrity of India. And that has led to multiple insurgencies. You can't count the number of insurgencies that different nations within Indian state have conducted in last 75 years. These are bloody insurgencies, thousands of people killed, but these insurgencies are never talked about at an international level, because the Indian state has put on a mask of what we call democracy, and it markets itself very well internationally in the West as the land of Gandhi, the land of non-violence, while the reality on the ground is very different. You have Sikhs who had fought multiple wars with Indian state, Kashmiris, the Tamilians, the Nagas, the Manipuris, the Assamese, the tribals. There's probably 10 more nations I can count here who are in a constant struggle for survival. They want to safeguard their nationhood against this kind of a fascist concept of India, which wants to basically homogenize them. So we've had genocides of minorities along the linguistic, ethnic, and religious lines. And India's core nature, therefore, is authoritarian. So it's a misnomer to say India is the biggest democracy in the world. If you look at every single element data point objectively, like the Human Rights Commission reports, the freedom of press, the freedom of fundamental rights that are guaranteed to individual, India is actually the biggest authoritarian regime in the world, maybe way more authoritarian than even China and Soviet Union ever were. Then India is also in constant conflict with Islamic Pakistan. This brings us to the crux. Okay, so as I said, the two nations were created based upon religion. Two states were created based on religion. So India Hindu, and Pakistan Islamic. So why it was religion? Because the Hindu leadership said, we are not 29 nations, we are two nations. We accept this fact that Hindus are a separate nation and Muslims are a separate nation. But we don't accept this fact that Punjabis are a separate nation, Bengalis are a separate nation, Tamilians are a separate nation, Kashmiris are a separate nation. They're saying all these nations within India, they are all Hindu nations that we are willing to accept, but we are not willing to accept that they are individual nations. So, because that's a lie, that's not true. The reality is that these are different nations. So, to strengthen the idea of Indian nationhood, what they constantly do is they treat Pakistan as an enemy. So they will create some war with Islamic Pakistan and then use fear of the Muslim to drive all the people on these nations within their control to come together and rally around the idea of India. Because otherwise, India doesn't give them anything. India doesn't give them good jobs. India doesn't give them security. So what you use is you use fear, and you create fear by saying, "Look at this Islamic Pakistan. These are the Muslims which ruled you. They are going to come and take you over again. So all of you, please remember, you are all Hindus. Let's all fight with Pakistan." So whenever the Indian state is under any kind of pressure from internal differences, lack of economic growth, or from external forces, it will always create some kind of a fight with Pakistan, which we call it in Punjabi Noora Kushti, or WWF in American terms, and start some conflict with Pakistan, and to strengthen its own Hindu nationhood and to rally all the Indians around the idea of India. Pakistan also does the same thing to a lesser extent, but the concept is same. Anytime Pakistan nationhood is under question mark, the Pakistan army will bring out this enemy of Hindu India and show that enemy to its people and bring unity among these diverse nations of Sindh, Baloch, Pakhtuns, and Punjabis, who otherwise would love to live as independent nations. But because there is this Hindu India, let us be together for safety. Otherwise, Hindus will come and destroy us. Same thing India does. That, hey, rally around Indian nationhood, because look, otherwise the Muslims will come and destroy you, the Islamic Pakistan. So these two states, the two nations, they called it two nation theory. They are not nations, they are empires. But these two empires conjured up a theory called two nation theory because the Hindu Congress did not want a 29 nation theory for the subcontinent. So they preferred a two nation theory. Now, to keep that two nation theory alive, they need Pakistan. So India and Pakistan will constantly fight at an operational level, at the military level, at in the gray zone operations, and they will constantly try to needle each other to keep the rivalry alive. But they will never. They have actual they have actually strategic alignment. They will never aim for the complete destruction of the states. India will never allow Pakistan to be fully disintegrated. Pakistan will never allow India to be fully disintegrated, because they need each other for justification of their existence. And so that is the reality of the subcontinent. Okay, that we have these two states which will constantly indulge in warfare, in genocides of its own minorities. I would say India more than Pakistan, because Pakistan, if to give devil its due, Pakistan is a reaction to Hindu India. Pakistan is not coming out of, on its own. It's a reaction of the Muslims to safeguard themselves from Hindu domination. So the core concept, the Indian state, the Indian empire, is where the main problem is. And what that does is, to keep that rivalry with Pakistan alive, India then basically blocks all trade and free movement in the whole subcontinent. Like, it will interfere in the affairs of all the smaller neighbors like Bangladesh, Pakistan, Nepal, and SARC, which was formed for South Asian free trade. It never got wings because India would never let it work. And India is the biggest kind of state, sitting right in the middle. More than that, it has also now added a nuclear dimension. This fake operational rivalry, if it gets out of control, because when you're fighting at an operational level, you might have a strategic alignment, but the fights can go out of hand. And if they go out of hand, we can have these two countries, states, throw nuclear weapons at each other, not just destroy themselves, but maybe the whole human race. And so that is what India and Pakistan are. And it's very important, as I say, it's very important for the world to understand this. Today, it's first time in 75 years, we had these multiple insurgencies. As I said, the Sikhs are fighting in Punjab, the Kashmiris here, the Tamilians and South Indians are fighting India, Bengalis are fighting India, the tribals in this belt are fighting India. All this Northeast doesn't want to be with India, and Pakistan for sure. These nations don't want to be India. That's why they were independent. I think we are in a at a time wherein maybe we should reimagine the subcontinent, because if we don't, if we let these boundaries, these colonial boundaries of India remain the way they are, and this powerful and brutally centralized power structure remain in Delhi, it is going to create problems not just for these people, poor people who are stuck in the prison of India. It will also create problems globally, and we have seen that happening. India, in last couple of years, it has come to light, is the biggest player of foreign interference in Canada. It actually killed a couple of Canadian citizens for daring to criticize the Indian state. It also killed a couple of UK citizens. And there is an indictment in New York court wherein some Indian officials are indicted for running death squads on American soil, targeting American Sikhs for criticizing the Indian state. And then, if you look at all the migration that has today flooded the West, destabilized Canada, even America to a great extent, create this problem of jobs out there. Where is it coming from? All of these are people from India who are escaping. And the Indian state, while simultaneously persecuting these people, also uses the same people to infiltrate the Western countries and create areas of influence in Western democracies. So, so I think it's a very very poor situation the world is, due to this current state of India, and it is high time, in my view, that the people of the subcontinent also get their sovereignty. They also get their liberty back. British might have left India or the Indian Empire, but the Indian continent is still colonized. It was never decolonized. The British Empire that they created is still intact. And the only thing that has changed is, rather than the neutral rulers, the neutral white rulers, now it has racist Hindu caste rulers who are not even neutral. And so the situation has really worsened for the people of the subcontinent. And I hope that people get educated about India, what is India, the nature of Indian state, and really do something to make sure that these nations gain their independence. These people deserve to be free as well, not just those who live in the free societies or the free world. So, that having been said, it is almost the end of my presentation. I'm going to invite some speaker. Um, we have another our friend Hark who is going to bring in that, oh, this is actually some central bank who is, who is running all this, but but that's fine. Yeah, people can ask for speaker and ask me any questions if they have, and then we will close the space after a couple of questions. Okay, anyone? Okay, make Punjab great again. Okay, aajo aajo. I sent you a speaker. Make Punjab. Shafiq Paji has asked for a speaker. Okay. Hanji, Shafiq Paji, go ahead, please. Ask anything that you want to ask.
Thank you, Ajit Paji. I have a couple of questions. First of all, thanks a lot for the detailed historic context and where India stands today and what's going on in India. And I always love to hear you, and your insight is really appreciated. And you have a great insight into the subcontinent and especially the Indian discourse, whatever is there in both the countries. If you can please shed some light, especially the Khalistan movement, like what parts of, of course, I know the Punjab, but what other states or provinces of India will comprise Khalistan? And realistically, all the insurgencies going on in India, what do you think, which ones have a chance of getting independence in the future of all the ones which are there, like 26 to 29? Which provinces you think or states you think would become independent in due course of history? Please, if you can elaborate on both, like what Khalistan will look like. Allah's will, one day it will happen.
Yeah.
And what other states you think will be able to get independence if it comes to that? Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think the nations which will probably gain independence the first will be East Punjab, that's Khalistan, Kashmiris, and also the Northeastern. I think so. I think because the northeast part of India, when I say northeast, you see this Bangladesh here. Anything east of Bangladesh, even some part west of Bangladesh, which is West Bengal, these are not Indian people. These are like they are different. They're different ethnicities, different religions, their culture, language, everything. You have Meghalaya, Assam, Arunachal. Arunachal will probably be taken over by China, which I would say is correct. If China is the owning Tibet, Arunachal is part of Tibet. Nagaland, Imphal, Mizoram, they all will become independent. I feel maybe Khalistan will be the one which will lead the path, and with the six. So the six are here. So as you see, like, and if people can follow my cursor on the screen, this is Punjab today, East Punjab. Punjab was way bigger. The real Punjab is somewhere from even Kashmir, somewhere like this. There's the big West Punjab, Haryana, Himachal combined. Okay, but what has happened through history is that West Punjab has become now Muslim majority Punjab. East Punjab is the Sikh majority area. Haryana and Himachal, which is also Punjab, are Hindu majority. Okay, so to me, like East Punjab is naturally now, should be an independent country, because Sikhs, they have nothing in common with the Indian state and whatever Indian states thought processes, their value system is. I would say to a great extent there is even difference in the values now of Hindu Punjabis and Sikh Punjabis, and their worldview has changed and it's very different. And so the East Punjab will become Khalistan, which is the state of Punjab. There's always question. People come up with different maps, and they also claim like we should get some part of Rajasthan, some access to the sea. I think that's okay, but at a minimum, we are going to see East Punjab, the Indian occupied Punjab, be an independent country of its own. Sorry, and Kashmir, definitely Kashmir deserves its own independence, and that I think will. I think both of these will happen together. Kashmiris and Punjabis will get their freedom together. Uh, as I think it might be the east part. I think this all might happen together. The south part actually might still remain part of the Indian Federation. I think.
Just can I interpret,
Yeah,
Faji, if you
yeah,
don't mind?
yeah. Go ahead.
So Khalistan, you think will be on East Punjab, not Himachal Pradesh or Haryana, or no part of that will be the part of the Khalistan when a new country is formed. Please, then if
Yeah.
you can please first.
Yeah.
Okay, because I have different maps. You're right. There are different maps of Khalistan. So, what would you think will be the realistically a part of Khalistan? Thank you.
Yeah. Look, I think what is morally, as a Sikh, I should ask for is just East Punjab. Okay? Because I have no right to claim that Himachal should be part of. But what is actually going to happen is this. Once East Punjab demands for freedom gain prominence, I think the freedom bug will also bite the Himachalis and Haryanvis. I don't think they would like to be part of India, and depending upon how things pan out, let us say there's a plebiscite tomorrow, or for in Punjab to, hey, do you want to be part of India or be an independent country? I'm telling you, even most of the Hindus will vote for Punjab. Punjabi Hindus will vote for Punjab being an independent country, and Haryana and Himachal might also say, why are you only conducting it in Punjab? You should also include us in the referendum. That is my sense might happen. But morally speaking, from our Sikh standpoint, I think we should only be asking for Punjab because that's what where we are. Punjab, which used to have Muslims, Sikhs, and Hindus, we have gotten. Even if Himachal and Haryana become like, even if Himachal and Haryana become part of Khalistan, they will be independent states in themselves, which will govern themselves the way they want. While Khalistan, the core Khalistan, the Sikh majority Punjab will govern itself as per the way we think the Khalsa principles are. But all of these, the West Punjab, the East Punjab, Khalistan, Himachal, and Haryana, they will all they because there is this. This is the greater Punjab. This is Punjab. The fact is that they are same DNA, same tribes, same way of thinking. They will always be in mutual, what you say, coalition. You know, something called joint defense. While they will have independent armies, independent flags, and independent constitutions, you will see natural affinity between these four constituents. So what's going to happen is, suppose somebody attacks West Punjab tomorrow, East Punjab or Khalistan won't stay quiet. Okay, it's going to come for help. Same thing with Himachal and Punjab. The problem today is Delhi, because Delhi controls all these things. It vitiates the atmosphere. But once that Delhi's control is weakened, you will see that these people will become like very friendly, and they are very friendly actually on the ground even today. But all this fight between India and Pakistan is basically created by Delhi. It's not by the people of Punjab, either on the west side or in the Khalistan side. All this fight between Haryana and sometimes you see Punjab, it is all planned, executed, sponsored by the Delhi regime, because it is their compulsion to make these nations fight each other and go and align more with the Indian identity than their own individual identity. So that's the problem. So once the control of Delhi is kind of reduced on Punjab, I think like Himachal, Haryana might also want to join this independent federation, but I think it's up to them. Being a Sikh, being a Khalsa, we don't believe in forcing people to. We believe in like right to self determination. They should decide what they want to do on their own. Okay. Make Punjab great again. Go ahead, please.
ਹਾਂਜੀ ਭਾਜੀ ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕਾ ਖਾਲਸਾ ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕੀ ਫਤਿਹ
Waheguru Ji ki fateh.
It's been a long time. How are you?
Good, good. I think maybe some way back you probably might have talked. I don't know. I don't remember. I'm sorry, but yeah, go ahead.
Okay. चलो ठीक है, no problem. अच्छा Harjeet, a lot of the information and insight you gave, like the gentleman spoke before, is very enlightening for sure. Very factual. A lot of the stuff, a lot of the information you gave is more or less spot on. But Harjeet, to think for one moment that the Sikhs will achieve independence of Khalistan is very delusional. Now, this is coming from somebody myself who was once a very big avid supporter of it. In my surrounding throughout my whole life, I've believed in nothing else so strongly. But when you see the conditions of the way that our desire as a group of people, and how badly we have been affected by the British invasion, by the colonial mindset, and I don't know how often you have been or not been to Punjab in the current state it is. We are light years ahead, light years away, and when you go there, I've been countless times, more than 15 times. It's very delusional. This is the word I've been thinking and listening, because I've really thoroughly enjoyed listening to your insights about what is India and Pakistan. I really enjoyed it thoroughly because it's very good and accurate. Because this topic is not just chalo sade neta.
No, that's fine. But my question to you is, why do you think it is delusional? Why?
It's delusional. As I've just given you two examples. One,
okay.
Like I'm not going to ask you a personal question as to whether you've been or how long you have been or how long you've been there.
No, I go there, but I've been there some time. But I was raised first 33 years of my life. I lived there. Last 4 years I've not been there. But I'm very familiar. Like, tell me, like, why do you think it is delusional?
Okay, I'll give you just very brief, very quickly, because I want to hear what you think about this. So, for example, I'm a big believer of diplomacy and diplomatic means of always trying to come to the table to find solutions. But this current concept of what the independence movement, or it's spearheaded by an organization. If you, I mean, obviously, we're talking about Sikhs for Justice here. They're spearheading this concept in the current climate, in the current times, in the last few years. Their ability to come to mediate and try to speak, even to people that they might not like. I'm a big believer, even if the people who do not like you and you do not like them, you should have the ability and the professionalism to come to the table to discuss. But I've, over the last few years, when I've just delved into this deeper and deeper, the whole Sikh community do not want this. It's a fraction of the Sikh community that want this. As I said, my heart has bled for this for many, many years. But as I come to certain terms and acceptance, we are, for example, Mr. Pannu is spearheading this in the sense that when you look at he's
okay. We'll not talk about people, but I think your point came. There are 2 points you made. Okay.
Yeah, no, it's the way. For example, Harjeet, it's I'm a big. For example, Harjeet, someone like you that was spearheading this, the way you can articulate.
We'll go there. I think I got your point. Okay, let me now kind of answer those points. I asked you the question. You think it's delusional, and there are 2 reasons you gave. One was you said we don't have effective leader advocating for Sikh viewpoint. That doesn't make the whole idea delusional. In your view, you might think, okay, that this person or this Jathebandi is not doing a great job. But in a way, you are then also believing in the cause. Because what you are saying in the same breath is that the cause is there. We just don't lack somebody who can put our point across in an articulated fashion. So it's actually twofold. The second reason you gave was, and that's fine. You could have some opinion on Panuvir. I have a different opinion. I support the cause of the referendum and SFJ and whatever they're doing with full heart. That's fine. You could think, okay, somebody else can do a better job. That's your opinion. You're entitled to your opinion. But there are many Jathebandis. Imagine, not just who are fighting for the cause of there's not just one Jathebandi. You can endless and many thousands of Sikh youth embraced Shahadat for the idea of liberty. Hundreds of thousands, not thousands. They didn't even think twice before going ahead and laying down their lives, saying, we will not be slaves, we will be free men, because that is what Guru has ordered us for. Which other community or nation in the entire subcontinent has laid down that number of lives voluntarily for the idea of liberty? None. And the secondly, you pointed out, okay, just a fraction of Sikhs supported. If that was true, why did Indian government have to kill 150,000 Sikh youth? Why did the Indian government have to put its whole entire army, whole division to attack the holiest place of the Sikhs, conduct a genocide of the Sikhs, and then for one full decade they picked up, tortured, eliminated any Sikh who they thought was having any idea of independence? Why then is the Indian state so afraid of a mere unofficial referendum? When Sikhs for Justice started this unofficial referendum, for people who don't know, there's a Jathebandi called Sikh grouping called Sikhs for Justice, which is doing this referendums in diaspora Sikhs. So they basically call the Sikhs in diaspora in Western countries like UK that, hey, come and vote whether you want East Punjab, the Indian occupied Punjab, to be an independent country or just be under a Delhi rule, the current status quo. And we had seen hundreds and thousands of diaspora Sikh leaving around their jobs. They come there and they vote, and it's been unprecedented, the crowds that we see there. And before this happened, the Indian state used to run a propaganda. Oh, it's a very minority of Sikhs in diaspora, very tiny minority of diaspora Sikhs who support the cause of Khalistan. All that propaganda was laid to waste the moment the entire world saw the Sikhs in diaspora coming up, not in hundreds, not in thousands, hundreds of thousands of Sikhs coming in and voting and saying, we want our independence, we want our liberty. And then the Indian state was so afraid of that simple unofficial referendum in UK that they risked their entire diplomatic standing, they risked their entire international reputation. They went ahead and killed one of the main ground activists, Sardar Hardeep Singh Nijjar. He was murdered by killers hired by the Indian state in Surrey, BC, in Canada, wherein 4 criminals pumped in 52 bullets in a cowardly fashion into his body on Father's Day when he was going home, right outside his place of worship, outside a Gurdwara, when he was leaving the Gurdwara after prayers to meet his sons to celebrate Father's Day. This is how scared the Indian state was. That led to the breakdown of diplomatic relationships between Canada and India, and Canada also figuring out that India is not only just aiming to kill one Sikh, but they have an endless list of Sikhs. Whosoever is talking about independence or freedom for the Sikhs, Indian government is running death squads using criminals on American and Canadian soil and getting them killed. So if it was a very, very minority, why would Indian state do that? I was talking to this Canadian intelligence official, okay? This is just Indian state propaganda. And then if it's a very, very minority, this Indian state will be the first one to say, come and do a referendum in Punjab. Let's get done away with. Just destroy the legitimacy of the Sikh demand by showing to the entire world that only 5% of the Sikhs kind of support that idea. They will never do it because they know the reality. The day a neutral power like a United Nation conducts a referendum without the fear of the Indian state, I am telling you, leave alone the sects. Punjabi Hindus, 90% of them will vote for Khalistan. They don't want to live with this, shithole, third world shithole country called India. I don't think so. So that's my take. And I just wanted to show you, because you brought this up, for people to see what is the difference between India and Khalistan, okay? And just see this, okay? Because the question came up that whether they deserve or not. Just look at this one visual and tell me who deserves, in this all the nations within this country, who deserves to be free and independent nation. This is a list of communal riots that happened in just 5 years in different parts of nations of India. You see which is the state in which, from not just last 5 years, last 75 years, not a single communal riot happened. Which is that state? It's Khalistan, Indian occupied Punjab, a Sikh majority Punjab. You can look at any single dimension of human development index. You can look at any single other dimension of the crime against lower caste or the crime against women. You will see Punjab is a best place, or the only civilized state among all the nations in this empire called India. Then you'll always see the second best will probably be Kashmir. The third best will probably be the Northeast. You see on the right hand side? And these are the nations which don't deserve to be polluted by the idea of India. And if anybody deserves to be a free, independent country, these are Punjab, Kashmiris, the Northeastern, not these middle part which can't even give their own people plain toilets. They can't give their own people food. The only thing they have given to their people in last 2000 years is a caste system, systemic degradation, rapes, tortures, poverty, misery, exploitation. So the only one, if I look at it objectively, not even as a non-Sikh, the only one capable of self-governance and civilization in this whole Indian empire are the Punjabis, the Kashmiris, the Northeasterns, and maybe even the Tamilians. Okay, that's the reality. Hanji, make Punjab ji, go ahead.
Hanji, Harjeet Singh, I really appreciate that insight. Harjeet Singh, having come back recently, there's in Punjab, the Jile Punjab Sube de vich, when I was traveling through there, when we have discussions with people in general, there's a growing feeling that people are more receptive to the concept of independent Punjab, but not an independent Khalistan. Now, that's not two of the same thing. What's your thoughts on that?
There is no difference, right? People are saying what we are saying, whether you call it Khalistan or you call it Punjab or you call it Timbuktu or you call it BYZA. Sorry for using those names, but I'm kind of exaggerating the thing. When we say Khalistan, we say people have the right to self-determination. The Sikhs have a right to self-determination. And then the Sikhs will sit together and decide how we will govern our society, how we will run this, how we will run East Punjab, what will be our police system, what will be our judicial system, what will be the laws. And with that, we will run it based upon the principles given to us by Guru Nanak Pasha. Those are freedom of religion. Just hold on, let me complete. Freedom of religion. Let me complete. Those are I'm laying out definition for you right now. The freedom of religion, freedom of speech, core principles of Sikhi, right of an individual sovereignty, right for an individual to be armed. Look at Anandpur da Mata. We actually gave them in writing what our concept of a free society is. And many scholars have given the idea of what Khalsa Raj will look like. And to us, we are a religion wherein freedom of speech and freedom of religion is part of our religion. Like our ninth Guru, which is the other community whose own prophet has given his life to safeguard the right of religion of somebody else. Nobody. Americans have written freedom of religion as a value in Bill of Rights, but for us, our Guru has taught it as part of our religion. Guru Nanak Pasha himself rejected the concept of wearing the Janau, the Hindu Janau, and said that, okay, this is nature of Indian state and the nature of Pakistani state, how they came about, why they fight with each other, why do you constantly see this, you know, Indian state kind of creating this problem. Okay, another thing, okay, I'll tell you like how they create this animosity. Okay, Indian state, to keep this animosity alive, will many a times conduct false flag operations. So this whole incident that happened in Pahalgam is a false flag operation. I'm pretty sure of that. And why I'm so sure? Because we have evidence and full track record of Indian state having conducted such false flag operations in past. And let me show you some of them. Okay. Um, and they do this only to create some kind of uh, tense situation with Pakistan, show themselves as the victims of terrorism, and then rally the Indian people around the notion of or people imprisoned in India around the notion of Indian nationhood. And let me bring out that Chetty Singhpura massacre. Okay, here it is. I'll share my screen and show that whole thread I have. I have a full thread on that to kind of tell you how India murdered 35 Sikhs um, in cold blood, just to portray to the whole world that look, you know, we are terrorism, we are victims of terrorism from Pakistan, and also to tell the Sikh minority that Muslims are your enemy. Okay, we should keep fighting them. And here it is. Let me share my screen. And what happened in Pahalgam is an exact replica of what happened in Chatti Singhpura. And hopefully you guys can see my screen. I'm going to just make these fonts bigger. This Chatti Singhpura massacre, like in Pahalgam, suddenly people come and shoot at innocent civilians. In this case, Hindus. In Chatti Singhpura in 2000, they were 35 Sikhs were pulled out. Yeah, Dr. Kura, I'll come to you, out of their homes in Kashmir and murdered in cold blood. And later on, a United Nations inquiry, actually headed by a retired Lieutenant General, a retired Chief Justice, proved that this act was done by Indian agencies with two motives. Okay. who is this guy who has put up this? It's amazing. Like, what is this guy? Like, this is what, while we are having this space, some Indian agent kind of came into the space and put this, all this kind of nonsense up on it. This is the level. This is what you just saw. Like, he put all this porn up on the Nest. And this is unfortunately the what Indian nationalism does to a human mind. Okay, we just saw a small glimpse of it. Who is this person? Dr. Kurang A. Patel. So the Indian nationalists cannot basically, Indian nationhood does not give any morality to its people. It's because it cannot make up any logical argument on its own for its fascist existence. These are the cheap tricks that they will indulge in. It's shameful. Mr. Whosoever was this person who came in, like, he's a human being, but look what Indian nationalism and Indian state has made you. We are having a discussion. We are talking about India, Pakistan, and we are having a sane discussion. I'm inviting everybody. But the Indian state sends you. Maybe you are paid, maybe you are not paid to do this act. Just think over it. Like, is that the type of state you want to support? Is that the type of thing you want to be part of? Is that the morality that they teach you to be an Indian? Maybe that is what the truth is. Anyways, so we were talking about Chatti Singhpura. So we have enough evidence. International agencies have proven that we had a UN report, which kind of basically, which has given its report and said it was the Indian agencies who did it. We also had not just the UN report. We also had Bill Clinton write as part of a forward to the autobiography of Madeleine Albright. He actually wrote that in Chatti Singhpura, when I was visiting India, this was an act done by the Indian state. And then there were 21 congressmen. There were many congressmen in the US Congress which blamed India for conducting that massacre, to basically portray itself as a victim and to blame Pakistan. And they also 21 congressmen signed a letter to the president to sanction India for that dastardly act. So this is a thread I have on it. You guys can go and read this thread. Let me see if I can put it on the Nest. Yeah. Khwaja Ashraf Paji is here. Khwaja Paji, please take a speaker. It'll be great to take some questions. We have some time left today. And yeah, Raman Paji, what is your understanding? Sukh Bajwa is here. Let me invite him as well. Raman Paji, what is your understanding of Indian?
You already, everyone already witnessed this one, right? So the first guy, right? Once you start giving the facts, he just left way, right? So now second guys came, right? So this is the mentality, right? How we can live with them. Our tradition, our religion, our values are not matching with them. People already saw that this face, right? The first guy, just here and there. No, I mean, you cannot trust these guys. They are not a human being. They're the animals, basically, worse than animals. That's it.
Oh, you're talking about the first gentleman who tried to gaslight and slip in the propaganda that the Sikhs don't want Khalistan?
Yep.
Okay. Yeah.
And you start giving facts, right, regarding the Chatti Singhpura. He just left, right?
No, he's there in the listener, but anyway,
yeah.
yeah.
Being, I'm telling you, they're not even a human being.
Yeah.
Worse than scum.
Yeah. That's true. If the Sikhs don't want Khalistan, like, why is India not conducting a referendum? Just common sense question. Ask yourself. Okay. And I'm not exaggerating. I'm telling you, many Hindus, especially the Pendu Hindus, will end up voting for Khalistan if there is an actual neutral referendum. And I can't guarantee the. But anyways, I think what's important is to understand the nature of the Indian state. I think that was my endeavor through this space. The space was directed more on the Western audience. And because what happens is many people in West, there's a lot of fake propaganda by the Indian state. of India being this non-violent country. India is a nation. India is the land of Gandhi. India is the land of this. And then the reality is something very different. An average Western white person does not even understand that India is an empire. It's an authoritarian regime. It's not a nation. And I request people who have watched this presentation today, please, when you go back, stop calling India a nation. Stop calling India a democracy. Let's call India what it actually is. It is not a nation, it is an empire, a prison of nations. Now, but also understand, it will help you deal, like the Western audiences and the Western policymakers also have to revise or deepen their understanding of the subcontinent. They just look at it like India, Pakistan, without really understanding what is the underlying issues out there. And I think, and let me pull up the map here again, and I tell you the solution for the problems once you understand the problem that is there. And let me share the screen here. Where has it gone? The solution will be right in front of us. Okay, here it is. The solution to the India-Pakistan problem is the independence of Khalistan and Kashmir, because the Sikhs, who are in the East Punjab, we have friendly relations with West Punjab, as well as we have friendly relations with the Hindus. So creating this state of or Khalistan between these two warring kind of nations who are created today, not nation states, who are created on the idea of Hindu and Islam, the having a state in between which is friendly with both will not only unblock trade and free movement of people and goods in the subcontinent, which has been blocked unfortunately for last 75 years. It will unblock that so that these nations can prosper. It will also take away the fear of or the threat of nuclear war. And any nuclear war happens between these two quote unquote nations, it's going to lead to eradication of humanity. And so it's very important. And also taking away the Northeast. That will limit the power of the Indian Hindu state. That will give a middle part, which is the Hindu majority, some chance at civilization and friendly relations with its neighbors. Today, India has no friendly relations with any neighbors, and it is incapable of that. Because they have now sold themselves this idea of India being a Hindu nation. And the Hindu nation then has to be the Bharat. And the Bharat is from mythology. And that Bharat is the Akhanda Bharat. Its boundaries are from the Central Asia right up till Indonesia. Now, if you're going to have that kind of a fascist ideology, you will only end up in conflict and misery. And that being said, Khwaja Saab has joined us. Khwaja Saab, welcome to our space. Thanks for joining. And
Thank you ਜੀ, ਜੀ ਬੜੀ ਅੱਛੀ ਸਪੇਸ ਹੁੰਦੀ ਹੈ ਜੀ ਤੁਹਾਡੀ, ਬੜਾ ਮਜ਼ਾ ਆ ਜਾਂਦਾ ਹੈ। ਤੁਸੀਂ ਤੀਸਰੀ ਤੁਹਾਡੀ ਸਪੇਸ ਮੈਨੂੰ ਸੁਣਨ ਲਈ ਮਿਲ ਰਹੀ ਹੈ, ਔਰ ਇਹਦੇ ਚ ਕਾਫੀ ਇਨਫੋਰਮੇਸ਼ਨ ਔਰ ਖਾਸੇ ਅੱਛੇ ਇੰਟੈਲੈਕਚੁਅਲ ਸੋਰਸ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਨੇ ਉਹ ਇੰਡੀਆ ਦੇ ਹਵਾਲੇ ਨਾਲ ਗੁਫ਼ਤਗੂ ਕਰਦੇ ਨੇ। ਔਰ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਵੀ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਗੁਫ਼ਤਗੂ ਕਰ ਰਹੇ ਹੋ, ਬਿਲਕੁਲ ਮੈਂ ਸਹਿਮਤ ਹਾਂ ਤੁਹਾਡੇ ਨਾਲ ਮੁਕੰਮਲ ਤੌਰ ਤੇ। ਇੰਡੀਆ ਦੇਖੋ, ਐਕਚੁਅਲੀ ਹਿਸਟਰੀ ਬੜੀ ਇੰਪੋਰਟੈਂਟ ਹੈ, ਔਰ ਇੰਡੀਆ ਨੂੰ ਅਗਰ ਜਿੰਨੀ ਦੇਰ ਤੱਕ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਉਹ ਹਿਸਟਰੀ ਸਾਹਮਣੇ ਨਹੀਂ ਰੱਖੋਗੇ ਤੇ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਮੁਕੰਮਲ ਤੌਰ ਤੇ ਸਮਝ ਨਹੀਂ ਸਕਦੇ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਮੌਜੂਦਾ ਇੰਡੀਅਨ ਰਿਆਸਤ ਹੈ। ਦੇਖੋ, ਮੈਂ ਤਾਂ ਸਮਝਦਾ 1947 ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਇੱਕ ਫੇਕ ਨੈਸ਼ਨਲਿਜ਼ਮ ਕ੍ਰੀਏਟ ਕੀਤਾ ਗਿਆ ਸੀ, ਜਿਹਦਾ ਨਾ ਇੰਡੀਅਨ ਨੈਸ਼ਨਲਿਜ਼ਮ ਸੀ। ਔਰ ਫਿਰ ਆਉਣ ਵਾਲੀਆਂ ਜਿਹੜੀਆਂ ਉੱਥੇ ਸਰਕਾਰਾਂ ਨੇ, ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਉਸ ਨੈਸ਼ਨਲਿਜ਼ਮ ਨੂੰ ਔਰ ਜ਼ਿਆਦਾ ਤੋਂ ਜ਼ਿਆਦਾ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਪਾਵਰ ਗੇਨ ਕਰਨ ਦੀ ਕੋਸ਼ਿਸ਼ ਕੀਤੀ। ਹਾਲਾਂਕਿ ਗੋਰਿਆਂ ਦੀ ਮੌਜੂਦਗੀ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਵੀ ਉੱਥੇ ਦੇਖੋ, ਕੋਈ ਰਾਮਪੁਰੀ ਸੀ, ਕੋਈ ਪੰਜਾਬੀ ਸੀ, ਕੋਈ ਸਿਆਲਕੋਟੀ ਸੀ, ਕੋਈ ਪਿੰਡੀਵਾਲ ਸੀ, ਕੋਈ ਆਪਣਾ
ਯੂਪੀ ਸੀਪੀ ਦਾ ਸੀ ਤੇ ਉਹ ਆਪਣੇ ਇਲਾਕਿਆਂ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਹੀ ਲੋਕ ਪਹਿਚਾਣੇ ਜਾਂਦੇ ਸਨ ਔਰ ਉਹ ਪਹਿਚਾਣ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਸੀ ਉਹ ਆਪਣਾ ਹਿਸਟੋਰੀਕਲ ਕੰਟੈਕਸਟ ਸੀ ਉਹਦਾ ਉਹ ਇੱਕ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਸਟਰੋਂਗ ਨੈਸ਼ਨਲਿਜ਼ਮ ਜਿਹਦੀ ਬੇਸ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਸੀ ਡੈਮੋਕ੍ਰੇਸੀ ਸੀ ਅਗਰ ਸਹੀ ਟਰਮ ਮੈਂ ਇਸਤੇਮਾਲ ਕਰ ਰਿਹਾ ਤੇ ਉਹ ਡੈਮੋਕ੍ਰੇਸੀ ਨੇ ਫਿਰ ਉਹ ਨੈਸ਼ਨਲਿਜ਼ਮ ਨੂੰ ਇੰਨਾ ਕੀਤਾ ਸਟਰੋਂਗ ਕਿ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਕਹਿੰਦੀ ਹਰ ਚੀਜ਼ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਉਹਦੇ ਤੇ ਸਾਡਾ ਕੰਟਰੋਲ ਹੋਣਾ ਚਾਹੀਦਾ ਉਹਦੇ ਤੇ ਫਿਰ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਅਗਰ ਉਹ ਗੋਲਡਨ ਟੈਂਪਲ ਵਾਲਾ ਆਪਰੇਸ਼ਨ ਕਰਨਾ ਪਿਆ ਸਰਦਾਰ ਭਰਾਵਾਂ ਦੇ ਖਿਲਾਫ ਤੇ ਉਹ ਵੀ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਕੀਤਾ ਔਰ ਕਸ਼ਮੀਰ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਜੋ ਕੁਛ ਕਰ ਰਹੇ ਨੇ ਉਹ ਵੀ ਉਹ ਕਰ ਰਹੇ ਨੇ ਔਰ ਬਾਕੀ ਕਿੰਨੀਆਂ ਵੀ 21 ਸਟੇਟਸ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਜੋ ਕੁਛ ਇੰਡੀਆ ਕਰ ਰਿਹਾ ਉਹ ਸਾਰਾ ਸ਼ਖਸਾਨਾ ਉਹ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਸਟਰੋਂਗ ਹਿੰਦੂ ਨੈਸ਼ਨਲਿਜ਼ਮ ਔਰ ਟੋਟਲ ਕੰਟਰੋਲ ਦਾ ਕੰਸੈਪਟ ਹੈ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਕਿ ਇੰਡੀਅਨ ਨੇਚਰ ਦੇ ਖਿਲਾਫ ਹੈ ਤੇ ਉਹ ਮੇਰਾ ਖਿਆਲ ਜਿੰਨੀ ਦੇਰ ਤੱਕ ਇੰਡੀਆ ਆਪਣੀ ਓਰੀਜਨ ਦੀ ਤਰਫ ਨਹੀਂ ਲੌਟੇਗਾ ਉਨੀ ਦੇਰ ਤੱਕ ਸਾਰੇ ਨੂੰ ਇਸ਼ੂ ਰਹਿਣਗੇ ਮੈਂ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਖਾਲਿਸਤਾਨ ਦਾ ਇੱਥੇ ਹੋਇਆ ਯੂਨਾਈਟਿਡ ਸਟੇਟਸ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਆਪਣਾ ਰੈਫਰੈਂਡਮ ਹੁੰਦਾ ਰਿਹਾ ਉਹਦੇ ਚ ਕਾਫੀ ਸਾਰੇ ਦੋਸਤ ਸਨ ਚੜ੍ਹਦੇ ਪੰਜਾਬ ਦੇ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਉਹਨੂੰ ਅਰੇਂਜ ਕਰ ਰਹੇ ਸਨ ਪਹਿਲਾਂ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਯੂਰਪ ਚ ਕੀਤਾ ਫਿਰ ਕੈਨੇਡਾ ਚ ਕੀਤਾ ਫਿਰ ਯੂਨਾਈਟਿਡ ਸਟੇਟਸ ਵੀ ਕੀਤਾ ਤੇ ਖਾਸਾ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਪੈਸਾ ਲਾਇਆ ਉਹਦੇ ਤੇ ਔਰ ਉਹਦੇ ਰਿਜ਼ਲਟਸ ਵੀ ਸਾਡੇ ਸਾਹਮਣੇ ਆਏ ਓਵਰਵੈਲਮਿੰਗਲੀ ਆਪਣਾ ਸਾਰੇ ਸਿੱਖ ਭਰਾ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਸਨ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਕਿਹਾ ਜੀ ਆਪਣਾ ਖਾਲਿਸਤਾਨ ਬਣਨਾ ਚਾਹੀਦਾ ਪੰਜਾਬ ਨੂੰ ਆਜ਼ਾਦ ਹੋਣਾ ਚਾਹੀਦਾ ਡੈਮੋਕ੍ਰੇਸੀ ਦੇ ਉੱਤੋਂ ਜਾਂ ਦਿੱਲੀ ਦੇ ਚੱਕਰ ਚ ਨਿਕਲਣਾ ਚਾਹੀਦਾ ਤੇ ਉਹ ਮੇਰਾ ਹਾਲੇ ਪ੍ਰੋਸੈਸ ਤੇ ਜਾਰੀ ਹੈ ਔਰ ਬਿਲਕੁਲ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਦਰੁਸਤ ਨਿਸ਼ਾਨਦੇਹੀ ਉਹਦੀ ਕਰਦੇ ਹੋ ਔਰ ਮੈਂ ਸਮਝਦਾ ਕਿ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਇਸ਼ੂ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਉਹਦਾ ਸਹੀ ਪਰਸਪੈਕਟਿਵ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਦੇ ਰਹੇ ਹੋ ਔਰ ਇਹ ਜਾਣਕਾਰੀ ਜਿੰਨੀ ਵੀ ਲੋਕਾਂ ਦੀ ਵਧੇਗੀ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਹੀ ਬਿਹਤਰ ਹੋਏਗਾ ਤੇ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦਾ ਸਿੰਬਲਿਜ਼ਮ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਹੈ ਉਹ ਸਿੰਬਲ ਜਿੰਨੇ ਵੀ ਜਿਸ ਤਰ੍ਹਾਂ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਜ਼ਿਕਰ ਉਹ ਸਾਰੇ ਸਿੰਬਲ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਨੇ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਡੀਮਿਸਟੀਫਾਈ ਕਰਨ ਦੁਨੀਆ ਨੂੰ ਪਤਾ ਚੱਲਣਾ ਚਾਹੀਦਾ ਇਹਦੀਆਂ ਬੇਸਿਸ ਕੀ ਨੇ ਥੈਂਕ ਯੂ
ਹਾਂਜੀ ਖਵਾਜਾ ਭਾਜੀ ਤੁਹਾਡਾ ਆਈ ਥਿੰਕ ਤੁਹਾਡਾ ਇੱਥੇ ਸਿਗਨਲ ਕੱਟ ਰਿਹਾ ਬਟ ਗੱਲ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਬਹੁਤ ਵਧੀਆ ਕੀਤੀ ਆਈ ਡੋਨਟ ਨੋ ਵੈਦਰ ਯੂ ਕੈਨ ਸਟਿਲ ਲਿਸਨ ਟੂ ਮੀ ਪਰ ਮੁਜਾਹਿਦ ਹੈਜ਼ ਜੁਆਇਨਡ ਅਸ if I can read I think he's written his name in Bengali है ना देखो इतना खूबसूरत and we are going to switch to Punjabi now I apologize to the rest audience we'll keep switching okay this whole subcontinent is so beautiful with its beautiful differences in collection of different languages and ethnicities and cultures and at a ground level if we don't have this centralized rule created by the Britishers called New Delhi, these nations are perfectly capable of living with each other in peace and prosperity, and on a ground level, they live like that. They don't fight with each other unnecessarily. I enjoy reading like Mujahid comes. Mujahid is probably a Bengali Muslim. But I will love to kind of learn his language and interact and do business with them while retaining my own identity, while retaining our own values, while retaining our way of life in Punjab. And same with Mujahid, same with the Tamilian, same with the Sindhi, same with the Kashmiri. But the issue is the idea of India. And the idea of India that the Hindu Congress got married to was that India is going to be one nation. India is not going to be these different nations. So we are going to tell all of them that you need to have one language. We are going to put one law on you. Why one law? Because eventually in their mind, they want to impose the Hindu law, which is the Varna Ashram. In English, it is called the caste system, but its real name is Varna Ashram Dharma. That is the real best way of life that ever was invented by human beings because our Brahmin scriptures say so. Whether and that is eventually the goal, and you'll be surprised. Many people don't know. People are sold that India is non-violent by saying, "Look at Gandhi. We gave you Gandhi." Gandhi is a perfect example of how deceptive this idea of India is. Because India sells itself as democracy, while in reality it is one of the most brutal authoritarian regimes that humanity has ever seen. The number of people that the Indian army and Indian police has killed, tortured, raped, like while we talk, is mind-boggling. But India still has a veneer of democracy. Same with, like, you'll be surprised. Who was Karamchand Gandhi? Karamchand Gandhi had such deep racist attitudes against the black people of Africa. You have to just go and read his writings about the black people of Africa. And I'm going to walk you through some of his sayings as we are through things. Karamchand Gandhi never said his goal in life was non-violence. Never ever he said his primary goal of life is non-violence. Show me once he has said his primary goal in life is non-violence. He has always stated that his primary goal in life is establishment of Varna Ashram Dharma in its pristine form in the Indian subcontinent. That is his written and stated goal. But the whole world reveres Karamchand Gandhi as this apostle of non-violence, while the reality is the opposite. Because nobody goes and reads what this guy is saying. And I'm going to walk you through some of it now that we are there. We are on this very interesting topic. Let me pull my presentation on dear Karamchand Gandhi out, okay? Where is Gandhi gone? Gandhi, there's a very good book, Gandhi Behind the Mask of Divinity, written by Colonel G.B. Singh, retired U.S. Army. You should read it. But he's made your life easier by writing this book. Let me just quickly walk you guys through a bit of a presentation on Karamchand Gandhi. While we are at Mujahid, Mujahid will be surprised because in Mujahid's mind, Gandhi was probably this really nice apostle of peace. Mujahid, how are you, man?
Salam, Sat Sri Akal. I would not be surprised because I've read many books on Gandhi ji, and I admire some of his traits, and then I'm also aware of many of the undesirable traits that he possessed.
Honestly, I have tried to find a desirable trait. I will be all ears if you bring one out, but I have struggled. I have read a good amount of him now, and I have really struggled to find anything positive. It's always with an agenda, and let me, for some reason, the Gandhi's PowerPoint presentation is taking time to open. Where is Mr. Gandhi gone? Okay. Here.
I mean, we have to view historical figures as human beings. All of them had flaws.
Correct.
And so history, unfortunately.
No, but if the historical figures' core purpose is to spread hate and violence, then like we shouldn't shy away from that. Like we have to analyze like what was Gandhi's core purpose in life. It was not something like, it was not a side what you call flaw. Okay, it was his core purpose was to establish Varnashram Dharma. So I had this presentation. Let me just quickly run you through some of.
I agree. I mean, the worst I would say a closet Hindu supremacist, and that would be coming from not exact words of Dr. Ambedkar, but he wasn't a fan either, and very few politicians during that time called him out for some of his hypocrisy. But it is politics, and then politicians will be politicians, regardless of whatever cloak they're wearing, one of divinity or otherwise.
Yeah. I'll quickly read one quote from Gandhi. And Musa bhai, just one sec. I'll just read now that we are at his topic, and let me read you one quote from Karamchand Gandhi. Okay, this big symbol of peace and non-violence, and I will do away with his. I won't give his racist course against black. It is just mind-boggling the way he talks about the black people of Africa. But let's just look at his oops, where is it gone? Like his views on caste, okay, and Varnashram. Okay. Oh, where is it gone? Okay, here it is. I'm going to just quote Karamchand Gandhi. People should go and study Gandhi to understand India, because then you will understand how deceptive, quote unquote, upper caste Hindu casteist mind is, and how clever it can be in kind of fooling you into believing that it is, it's harmless. And here it is. If people can see on the screen, I'm going to do this is collected verse of Karamchand Gandhi directly, and I'm quoting him, and people who are on live stream can read with me. Okay, quote Karamchand Gandhi. Quote, Varnas are just four and not numerous. They have been sanctioned by the Shastras. Whether or not people are conscious of them, they do exist all over the world as we see. There are everywhere these four classes, blah, blah, blah. There is no feeling of high or low in this division. But since this is not understood as a great law of nature, there has been confusion in it. That is, these four functions are no more confined to the respective varnas. Instead, men have been taking up any occupation they choose with a view to achieving their selfish ends. At one time in India, people used to consciously follow this law and thus lived in peace. One accepted the calling of one's own varna and was satisfied in its pursuit for general welfare. There was no unhealthy competition among people to jump from one varna to another for the sake of money or fame. At present, this significance of the varna system seems to have disappeared even in India. Destructive competition is on the increase. Everyone takes liberty of following any profession, and the meaning of varna has been restricted to unnatural and meaningless restrictions on intermarriage and interdining, and that is why the country has stopped progressing. Hinduism will once again shine forth if such senseless restrictions are abolished and the pristine varna system is established in India. This was his core purpose. He wanted Hindu varna system to be established using the state power, wherein people will be restricted depending upon your surname. People will be restricted to the profession that is reserved for the people with that surname, and that's what it's going to be. And then he says endogamy will be a natural result. We will not force endogamy. Like, why will he say a lower varna lady marry a higher like a higher varna lady marry a lower varna person? It will naturally be she'll like to marry either in the same varna or marry up. So endogamy or this like intermarriages will be itself stopped, but if we just establish the varna system in its pristine form. That is Karamchand Gandhi for you. No social mobility. Okay. And he said, and then somebody asked him a question, okay, Mr. Gandhi, if everybody is going to have the same profession as his father, depending upon their surname, right? So what if like now I am born a Shudra and I can only do farming, but I want to read and write. I also want to, like a Brahman, I also want to be able to read and write and do a scripture. Or if I am a Brahman, I also want to go and farm. Then he said, okay, he said, you can do that as a hobby. Okay, as a hobby, it's not a problem. So a Shudra can have a hobby of reading and he can go and buy books and start to learn how to read. There'll be no restriction on it. But you can't do it as a profession. These are the kind of absurd thought. This is why Gandhi is called the father of India. Because the Indian state's ultimate goal is this: Varna Ashram Dharma. That is what is coming back, ladies and gentlemen, if the world doesn't intervene. Yes, Musab Ali, you can go ahead and then we can go to Mujahid. Yeah.
Greetings, salam and Sat Shri Akal to everyone. I'd just like to add one more point regarding so-called Mahatma Gandhi, that he practiced celibacy, and to ensure that he was the so-called celebrate supreme, he used to sleep naked with young girls in his ashram. I'm not making this up. You guys can look up on the internet, look up on the chat GPT, look up on any resource that you want. I'll repeat myself again. He used to sleep with young women, not to to do what any normal person does, to prove that he was celibate, and to prove that the feminine stuff has no effect on him. And the irony is that we have this guy's photo on our currency notes. I mean, we cannot. This guy's photo is on our currency notes. I'm sorry, I'll just switch to Hindi/Urdu.
No, that's fine.
ऐसे बंदे को भाई ऐसे बंदे को यार हम हमारी बहू बेटियां हमारी खवातीन के सामने हम लोग दिखा रहे हैं तो यार मतलब क्या कोई sense
No,
है
but
यार?
Mustafa ji, just hold on. I'll throw some light on that. Okay. What we are talking about right now, because we are trying to understand India and Pakistan, and this aspect of understanding Gandhi is important. We're trying to understand who was Gandhi, because India is a Gandhian state today. Gandhi was a core upper caste, twice born Hindu who wanted Varnashram Dharma, which is the core aspect in his mind of Hinduism, to be established in India. The other aspect that Mr. Musa brought out was his child molestation, where he had minor from his own family, girls he would at a ripe age of whatever 70 plus, 80 plus, he would sleep naked with them, and he called it. And that he would do, Mr. Musa, because you probably are not aware, he did that because he was a yogi. He was also a practitioner of yoga. So if you have read yoga is basically the core element of yoga. Yoga is not about exercise. It's not body exercise. Okay. Yoga is about the exercise of the sexual organs in a way that when you are having intercourse, and unfortunately I have to lay this out, it is so full of that kind of stupid stuff, that when you have intercourse, you can ejaculate while without ejaculating, like you don't lose your semen, and you can pull it back into your organs, and that semen collects at the lower part of your spine, and it gives rise to what they call whatever the third eye or whatever, the kundalani thing, and that generates the spiritual energy. So that is why brahmacharya, that they call celibacy, is the core part of yoga. So you're not supposed to have sex, but you can have sex if you have the ability to pull your bodily fluid back and not let it get out of your body. That is what they do in yoga. If you see all those pelvic exercises, and then it goes to all kind of mindless, it's mind boggling what kind of exercises they do with their sexual organs. And maybe, and it's called that final mudra that you have to practice is called something. So there's a lot of work that is done on yoga when you actually read the scriptures, not what people tell you on television. Yoga is about exercise. They don't tell you. When you actually go in advanced stage, then they will tell you what actual the core purpose here is. And so you should read the yoga scriptures. Colonel GB Singh has done a lot of work. I have done a lot of live streams on yoga. But coming back to the topic, okay, I want to kind of not walk too far away from the topic. Coming back to the topic, we are trying to understand, India and Pakistan. Mujahid, in your understanding, I know I kind of took away your turn. Now, I don't know. I'm assuming you are younger than me, and you have a unique background. You were a Bengali Muslim, but maybe born in Pakistan. Now you are probably a global citizen. You probably have listened to something that I have laid out on India. What is your take? Like, do you think having this centralized Delhi, India, like, am I reading the nature of Indian state correct, or you have something to add there?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I have a lot to add there. तो Harjeet ji, Gandhi ji की तो briefly बात हुई थी, and yes, he was a proponent of colonialism in another form, unfortunately. And the idea of India as one nation state is absolutely absurd. Even if at the very least you can see the subcontinent for logical groupings, the Indus Basin the Bengal Assamese Delta, the Dravidian South, and then you have the north and central part of India. The idea of one nation state, a centralized nation state with not even one ethnic group, but 7 or 8 ethnic groups and at least 300 languages, 300 plus, 400 plus languages and dialects in one centralized form is absurd. And it is, of course, a legacy of colonialism. Without colonialism, there would have been South Asia, the subcontinent would have evolved into many nation states. But at least 4 logical groupings. And if you look at 1938 to 1947, we don't have just the idea of 2-nation theory, but of 4-nation theories. And all of them projected by the All India National Congress. You have the Sarwardi Bose Pact for a nation state that would have included Bengal and Assam. The Bengal Pact, Sarwardi Bose Agreement. And even when the vote was taken in the assembly, they voted in favor, but the Hindu members were advised by the Congress to vote against keeping Bengal united, or even the possibility of a nation state being created right then. I'm not opposed to some form of economic union, but decentralization is a must. And decentralization is inherently stronger than any form of centralization that oppresses through cultural imposition of a majority, political subjugation or social subjugation, and economic control in the hands of majority. Absolutely absurd idea to have a centralized nation state. So absolutely oppose the idea of this Akhand Bharat, or how they propose or see it as. But again, the Indus has its own economic unity going back thousands of years. Bengal Assamese Delta is its own, as well as the Dravidian South. And it was a grave injustice to the Northeast. And I'm sure you're aware the Bangla Assamese script have a similarity. And their economic and political social history is far older. And they have suffered the most under colonialism than any other part of the subcontinent. But I think it's a complete alignment with any reasonable person who has read South Asian history, who would always oppose any idea of centralized nation state.
Yeah. But the problem, Mujahid, is, and Akhtar Paji, I'll come to you. The problem is that the Indian state, this powerful entity that the British left, and the moment in the Indian state you talk about autonomy, or right of self-determination for these nations, it comes after that element, like with ferociousness. And it has in past conducted genocides and mass murders of a scale that are unprecedented in human history. And I just want to quickly show you guys, okay, this in this small presentation. These were after Indian state got formed, the Hindu Indian state, the Sikh minority did not sign the constitution. And we Sikhs started demanding federal structure, that the state center should be restrained to defense and foreign affairs. And they didn't, they in 70s, they even got some of the southern states to sign what is called, quote unquote, Anandapur Da Mata. It was an Anandapur revolution. And the Sikhs were always demanding just the federal structure. They never even demanded like Khalistan at that point in time. And it was always there, the idea, but not like in a popular form. And what happened was that in late 70s and early 80s, there is a very charismatic preacher. We call him Sant Jarnail Singh Bhindranwala. He came on the scene, and he basically then galvanized the people of Punjab, and he started Dharm Yudh Morcha. The Dharm Yudh Morcha was, he said every day 50 volunteer Sikhs should come and give voluntary arrest demanding federalism. No violence, a totally non-violent morcha. He asked for 50, but every day 5,000 to 50,000 people will gather, depending upon the day, to give arrest. And very soon, all the jails in India, from Kashmir till Kanyakumari, they were filled with Sikh Punjabi rural prisoners. They had no space left for a prisoner. And for this very democratic protest, what the Indian army did, the Indian government, rather than negotiating and saying, okay, this is a democratic demand, they sent the Indian army to attack the holiest shrine of the Sikhs in Darbar Sahib. Okay, and and basically they attacked the Akal Takht with all the weapon systems that they had. And the operation lasted, the fierce part of operation lasted 4 days, but yeah, the resistance in the temple complex continued for maybe 7 to 10 days. They launched whole army to attack not just Darbar Sahib, but 119 other gurdwaras in Punjab, put the entire state under emergency military rule to catch one person. And in Operation Blue Star, there are different estimates ranging from, as low as 1,100 to as high as 15,000. I believe 5,000 people were killed. And just to capture, just because the Indian state wanted to teach Sikhs a lesson that there's not going to be any federalism. Because if was there going to be federalism, that was what Jinnah's demand was. They would have agreed at that point in time. They agreed to the idea of Pakistan to... Yeah, they agreed to the idea of Pakistan to avoid any kind of federalism. So why would they agree today? They would go to any extent to suppress any demand for autonomy or federalism. Any extent. And they showed it in 1984 by attacking the Sikhs. And this is the Akal Takht, which the Sikhs, we consider it our holiest shrine. And this is how it was bombarded with tanks and helicopter gunships, artillery in a small area. They bought tanks, artillery guns, anything. And this is just an image of, and after 5,000 pilgrims were killed, they didn't even pick up the bodies with dignity. So what they did was the army, when the pilgrims were hiding, obviously in the rooms which were on the side of the Sarovar, the army, to clear those up, it's going to take courage now to clear those up. So what they simply did was they kept throwing grenades into these rooms, killing hundreds at one time. And they didn't even bother to pick up the body. So these are the pictures of mothers from villages who came searching for the dead bodies of their sons. And they're looking through these windows on those mess of, 50, 100 bodies inside, which dead body belongs to their loved one. So this is what the Indian state did. And not just that, they launched a brutal military rule in Punjab for 10 years after this, killing more than 100,000 Sikh youth, because federalism is something that they cannot accept. And then obviously Indira Gandhi was shot dead as a result. And what happened was they conducted a massacre, genocide of 30,000 Sikhs through 100 different cities in 18 states in India. It was not just Delhi. More than 300,000 Sikhs were displaced. This is the speech of this is Sardar Narinder Singh Kapani. He's called the father of fiber optics. The internet that we use is primarily credited to him. And I'm going to just, and this is his speech in 1984. He gave while setting up World Sikh Organization. And I'm going to play this so the people understand what the real nature of the Indian state is. Okay.
The fact of the matter is that the massacre of the Sikhs in India in the year 1984, which totals approximately 50,000 Sikh men, women, and children, is something that they want to hide. 10,000 Sikhs that were mercilessly butchered in Delhi alone. And similar holocausts occurred in practically all major cities in India between 1st of November and 6th of November, 1984. Ladies and gentlemen, it is shameful that the so-called largest democracy in the world had the members of the parliament leading mobs of prisoners and gundas to go out, burn the properties of the Sikhs, burn Sikhs alive, kill their children and women, raped by 15 men at a time. We living thousands of miles away from there, attempt to mobilize a campaign to assist our brothers and sisters that are in dire trouble. And we are told by the Indian embassy in Washington that you are not allowed to even send aid to the Sikh victims to these atrocities. And a campaign of genocide is being launched upon. And in the year 1984, Sikhs have seen and experienced tragedies that are probably paralleled only by 2 or 3 similar tragedies in the last couple of centuries. We must get the message across that it is not the Sikhs who wanted to separate from India, it is India who has forced the Sikhs to separate from India. The fact.
Okay. That's a very moving speech by Dr. Kapani. Akhtar, you have your hand raised, and then we'll go back to Mujahid.
So thank you, Harjeet Sab. I guess the topic is quite serious in that sense, and just reflecting on some of the things you said and what Mujahid said. Let me just start with this, right? So Harjeet, you said that this goes back to 1984, right? Now, if people imagine what the world was like, what are we talking, 40 years ago? And the wanton cruelty, the sadistic cruelty that you described the Indian forces inflicted on the Sikh community, in my view, was the template which has been followed since then. So sometimes, obviously, more recently, it's turned against Muslims, but this is a well documented history that you've read out. And correct me if I'm wrong, but I think there hasn't been a full reckoning as to how many Sikhs were killed by Indian forces. And if I remember rightly, reading some stuff on this more recently, that several gurdwaras were also desecrated. So from Muslims' perspective, it's essentially a foreign army coming in and attacking, let's say, the city of Makkah or the Kaaba or the Prophet's Mosque in Medina. So I think people need to understand the gravity of what they did. And as you rightly said, And before I go any further, you said the Prime Minister was murdered. And then remember, this was the scion of a secular dynasty, which unleashed this kind of horror on the Sikh community. So going forward, you come back to someone, a Hindu fanatic, or like Nazi-like ideology of Modi. So you can well imagine how things have moved on from there. So essentially, Modi is no different to what came before, even under secular banner, if you like. With that said, looking back India's history as a union country, it's essentially, in my view, is an invention of the British. As you rightly said, before there was never an idea of this India central state which governs all the different communities which had developed, existed, overlapped across hundreds of years, if not more. So what has happened, in my view, is very unnatural state of event, and that explains why even a place like Bangladesh really despises what India stands for now. Maldives hates them. They intervened in Sri Lanka's civil war, and obviously Indira Gandhi's son paid with his life in a suicide attack. This modern state launched wars in China. It bullies Nepal. It treats Bhutan and Sikkim as if like they are pesky little insects. and and you can forget the whole thing about Pakistan anyway. So all of this stuff, in my view, in India is a very unnatural state, as a centralized state run by a Nazi ideology, manifesting itself in essentially the arrogance and genocidal virtues of Modi's followers. So that is something which I think we should keep in mind all the time, that this state cannot go on forever. Right now, they're reaching out to, of all people, finding their, if you like, support in Taliban. The most obscurantist, fundamentalist, fanatics people, right?
Quite apt, though. Quite apt. Honestly, it's quite apt.
So and then the thing is, they have been engaging in what you will call terrorist activities in the United States, trying to eliminate Sikh activists. They have been placing bounties on heads of people in Pakistan, who they call terrorists. So that essentially is essentially extrajudicial killings and by terrorist methods. They've done same in Canada. They're trying to do same in Australia. So this all points down to one thing: that this state, as is very unnatural. It thinks it is Israel in this region, and it can do what it likes. It can treat China like Syria, for example, and Pakistan like Gaza, and obviously maybe Burma, Maldives, and Sri Lanka as the West Bank and all the rest of it. So one thing, every time you engage with Modi Bucks, is that the genocidal wet dreams that they kind of salivate over every single time. It's almost like, your phone starts to get wet with the kind of, almost disgusting thoughts that they project on in the public sphere.
Yeah.
They recently insulted the Iranians. In some Hindu texts, apparently the Kaaba in Makkah is an old Hindu shrine, right? So just like Greater Israel map, there's apparently a Akhand Bharat map which goes beyond Afghanistan, Pakistan, Sri Lanka, Burma, Nepal, Bangladesh. It goes all the way, passes through modern Iran and into the Arabian Peninsula. I mean, this to me sounds like that they are just absolutely mad, bonkers fanatics.
Yeah, I think interesting. You bring up the notion of Nazism and the similarity between Indian nationalism and Nazism. And you'll be surprised if you have actually studied Indian nationalism. It's exactly the same. The concepts are exactly the same. And that is why there was also a lot of mutual attraction between these two philosophies. General Himmler, who used to carry supposedly the Brahmanical scripture of Gita and used to read it, because to them this whole idea of a superior race and an inferior race really kind of worked in their advantage. And the Hitler view, the Nazis were looking for unity in political action, and the justification they gave was that we should have unity in political action because we have racial similarity. And the notion that the Indian nationalists or people like Gandhi and Nehru gave was that we should, for Akhand Bharat and India and everybody being a Hindu is, they are saying we should have unity in political action because we are civilizationally similar. So they have this concept of civilizational nation that they bought in. So what they're saying is that, but it's a faulty notion. It's not accurate. It's a totally falsehood. How can a Pathan be of the same civilization as a Tamilian? Impossible. How is Tamilian the same civilization as a Nagaland guy? It's not possible. Maybe you can make an argument this Ganga Jamuna is one civilization, Indus Valley is another civilization, Kaveri in the south valley civilization is another civilization, and the northeast is another civilization. And these nations within these civilizations can figure out how to manage themselves. At the max, you can make this kind of an argument. But to make an argument, an absurd argument, going to mythology, not even history, and saying this whole area is Bharat, now that's full of that's basically fascism. Nazism in another form. And that's why you will be surprised, Akhtar. There was, I've forgotten the name of this white nationalist who murdered a lot of people. He was actually an admirer of RSS, and similar some of the admirers of RSS. Some of the top intellectuals of RSS were admirers of Nazis and what they did. So it's basically the same concept. And people who are for righteousness and liberty should never accept it. Okay, never accept it. Mohammed, please go ahead, and then we'll go to Mujahid. Mohammed Mia, please go ahead.
Assalamualaikum. Acha, I was listening to you, Harjeet Bhaji, when you were mentioning the 80 Sant Pindra wale. The argument was from the Indian side, they wanted to establish the writ of the state. So they stormed the Holy Temple. And when they were demolishing the Babri Mosque, nobody dared to fire upon them to establish the writ of the state, because also the Supreme Court order was already there to protect the mosque. Government of India was obliged to establish the writ of the state, but they never, did the same massacre over there, what they did in Golden Temple. And I was reading somewhere, somebody said, wrote a book about it. In his book, he was, I think, the officer from the intelligence services in India. He said Narasimha Rao was the premier at that time, and he said, how can he fire upon the people who are chanting Jai Ramji? How can he fire upon them? And it's okay to fire upon Sikhs, fire upon Muslims, and nothing happens to the Hindu community. And I don't think even in 84 riots, they tried to suppress those riots, and by firing upon the rioters, like those goons who were, massacring the innocent people. And I heard that nobody was ever even punished for that. I mean, how can you run a state and pretend to be a secular in this time when the information is all over? No, you can't hide the information these days. And I find in Indians, from top to bottom, it is liberal, ponytail liberals, or RSS conservatives. देश के टुकड़े भाई कौन से देश के टुकड़े? It was so many days when British came here, and they bind them together, even Burma, even Gulf states, Sri Lanka, with the Indian continent, and they built an Indian empire, and they kept it with the brute force. And India cannot be kept together without using a brute force. India cannot stay together, stay united without the use of force. And that's what is happening right now. They have to use force in Nagaland, they have to use force in Kashmir, and they have to use force anywhere people demand their rights. It is very unnatural, and unnatural things, they don't survive for a long. That's what I just wanted to say. And I just came in and you were talking about, somebody was talking about yoga. I read a comment about yoga that day. Somebody is trying to hit his own behind called yoga. It was so interesting to me. Okay, sir. Thank you very much for letting me speak.
No, Mohammed Paji, please. It was I think you made very insightful comments. I think you brought up one point which I want to quickly highlight before we go to Mujahid, is that when it comes to the Indian nationalism is basically fascism, Nazism with a different name. And when it comes to the idea of India and suppressing and all these minorities and converting them into one homogeneous whole, a fake Indian nation, there is no difference between so-called secular liberal parties of India and this right-wing BJP party. There is no difference between Hindutva and Indian nationalism. It is one and the secular nationalism of Congress party. It is one and the same thing. They just name it differently. If anything, the overtly called secular nationalism of the liberals in India is way more dangerous. If you just look at their track record in terms of the number of minorities they have murdered, killed, genocided, way higher than the so-called right-wing BJP party. Honestly, this BJP party has exposed India in front of the whole world, while the so-called secular liberals were clever enough to keep wearing a veneer of democracy while conducting a genocide of their minorities always and all the time. So people need to understand there is no difference between RSS, Hindutva, BJP, and Congress. It's called window dressing. Okay, and their umbilical cord is the same, which is to homogenize the subcontinent into one nation. And yeah, Mujahid, and then we'll go to Akhtar.
Shukriya, Harjit. Marjit, I sent you a DM as well. I think I'll be repeating myself, but yeah, absolutely agree. And this legacy of imperialism, colonialism, unfortunately, was not just passed on to Bharat alone, but it got passed on to the establishment in Pakistan. And again, artificial unions. We could argue, of course, I see the Indus as one, but I still respect the many nations that exist in the Indus, which must be respected. Unfortunately, it isn't. But hopefully, the powers dynamics that exist in that region will see the wisdom in respecting all languages, identities, and nations, as is the case with Bharat. I don't even like using the word India. Bharat referring to itself as India is like Germany calling itself Europe. Pretty absurd.
That's correct.
Yeah. So, I mean, all identities must be respected. Unfortunately, the dynamics that exist now, the political reality and fault lines that exist now, and especially this recent conflict. So the new battle lines, and which I think is quite apparent, is focus on, from one side, on Kashmir and Khalistan. Self-interest for the establishment in Pakistan, okay, but we can look at this from a moral and ethical perspective as well. And again, coming back to the Indus, the entire Indus Basin, the rivers, it's an unnatural division. And economic cooperation for at least the Indus region is the logical path forward. But on the other side, with the establishment and deep state in Bharat, their focus has now shifted towards the Taliban and the BLA. Not that the Baloch don't have just cause. There have been many injustices against them. And it would be remiss of me, even with whatever loyalties I have, not to speak about that. But again, just to conclude, colonial legacy, imperial legacy was passed on not just to one, but to two power centers in the subcontinent, which has been harmful for the people that live under their rule.
Yeah, no, I think very well said, Mujahid. I think this is the core message, and we'll start wrapping up the space after taking a couple of more questions. But I think this is the core message. India is not a secular country. India is a theocratic Hindu state, envisioned as a prison in which these diverse nations will be homogenized over a period of time into a mythological Bharat nation, whose core will be Varna Ashram Dharma. And it's important for people to realize that there are nations imprisoned in India who are fighting this fascist ideology. Sikhs, the Kashmiris, the Bengalis, the Northeastern, the Nagas, the Manipuris, the Imphalis, the Assamese, the Tamilians, and it's important for the world to stand with these movements, to stand with the movement of Khalistan. And at the forefront is the movement of Khalistan, which is led by the Sikhs. So if you want to really, really help the people of the subcontinent and further the cause of liberty and justice in the world, stand with the movement of Khalistan. And that's the movement you can stand by with, and history will judge you as having done the right thing. That is my message, that is my learning, and that's kind of my urge. And yeah, Akhtar, please go ahead, and then we'll start wrapping up the places.
Yeah, just to make I think the point you and Mujahid have made is that there are several unnatural outcomes since the, if you like, the departure of British. I'm trying to use as neutral language as possible. With that said, and I'll remind you what I said before, what happened in Operation Blue Star happened under a secular government, right? Which reinforces your point that this is all a disguise, maybe a polite front of fascism or an overt, arrogant front of fascism under Modi. It's the same continuum,
Right.
and trying to hammer every other kind of identity and, if you like, a nation or a region into shape so that it conforms to this mythology of Akhand Bharat is the reason that there are, I think, I checked, like 40 something separatist movements, active insurgencies active in India. So as you rightly say, I think we should, in our discourse, when we discuss amongst ourselves, especially when we discuss with the audience in Western Europe and in America and so on and so forth, we should rightly say that this is a fascist ideology. This is no different from the ideology of Nazism. They have this invented mythological idea of their superiority, superior race, and they want to make sure that everything which stands in the way is either changed or preferably it's destroyed and diluted. So I think we should always say Hindutva is Hindutva Nazis. I mean that's what I refer to them all the time. So we should do this all the time.
Yeah, no, thank you, Akhtar. That's very, very, I think, insightful, and it's great to meet people like you, Mujahid.
Just one last thing.
Yeah.
Just one last thing on the last point is this: that if we say Hindutva, most people in the West will not understand. If you say Hindutva are like Nazis, then you translate Hindutva into something the Western audience can understand. That's really, really crucially important. I think we should do that.
No, absolutely true. And you'll be surprised how people in the West are now getting educated about Hindutva or Hindu Nazis or whatever the right word is. I think people are really studying up, and you'll be surprised how in depth they are studying this Nazism of the East or fascism of the East. And because it's not at the doors of the West, I think it has entered the Western society itself. Look at the number of people who are from Indian descent now, part of America and Canada, and they are in the top positions. Not bad people individually, but they are infected with this idea of Bharat being this, ultimate civilization which has to prevail on everybody else, and Varnashram Dharma being the best way of ordering society. And inside, they actually hate the idea of America and the liberties that we enjoy here, and they want to bring, that Varnashram Dharma back. So something that I think people in the world need to understand. People also in the world need to understand what is happening in India and what is India, and start supporting people in India. The Sikhs, the Bengalis, they don't need your help. They just need you to see the truth as is. The people there are very, very capable of, getting freedom from this colonial legacy called India or Indian state. But the issue is that the Indian state is constantly legitimized by the Western governments. When Biden invites Modi, who is a mass murderer, a genocider, and kind of calls India the biggest democracy in the world, nothing can be further from truth. please do business with these bastards, or sorry for my language, please do business with these genociders, and a foreign policy you have to for American interest. But please stop calling them democracies. These are way worse than the regimes that people call, oh, they are autocratic, Saudi Arabia is autocratic. Look at how India treats its citizens. It's 100 times worse. So why treat India differently? Call India what it is, and then you can always, do trade with them, whatever you want to do, but at least stop legitimizing them. Because if you legitimize them by calling them democracies as legitimate regimes, then you are participating in the murder and suppression of the very people that India suppresses all the while. And it's not a good solution, and eventually it will come to haunt the West, and it has already come to haunt the West. People who know how the Indian state is interfering in Canada, you know what India is doing there. And what India is doing in America today is right now probably not that much out in public sphere, but we know how much of a danger India possesses to America from within. And the right solution for the world is break this prison of nations, get these nations to be free, independent, sovereign nations that they were, and then you will see peace, prosperity, no nuclear war, nothing. The South Asia will become, will have free movement of trade, goods, people. It will be good for American economy, for Chinese economy, for everybody, and there'll be no threat of nuclear Armageddon on humanity. So with those words, I want to thank everybody for dialing in. We are almost 2.5 hours now, but thank you everybody for your time. Really appreciate you dialing in, and we'll end it with a prayer that Guru Nanak gave us. Okay. And basically, he asked us to be in Chardi Kala and to always wish for the welfare of everybody. So, Nanak Naam Chardi Kala Tere Pane Sarbat Da Pala. Vaheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Vaheguru Ji Ki Fateh.